You're with the Breaker-Leggers!
And we're in London at the Royal Court Theatre
To see the play Road.
So stay tuned to find out how many legs,
Whether it's break a leg or leg it.
Before you go any further,
To make sure you've always got your finger on the theatrical pulse,
for theatre news, reviews and interviews.
make sure you hit that subscribe button now.
So we're here for Road at the Royal Court, which is one of our favourite venues. We've seen some great stuff here.
Yeah, I've got to say it's one of the most comfortable venues in London as well. It's got beautiful seating, so I always love coming here because you know you're not going to get numb bum.
Yeah, and it's a really good vibe. There's a bar downstairs. Nice thing as well, if you get a programme, the programme is actually the play text, so you end up getting a copy of the script as well.
Yeah, and it's really, really great value, so that's something to look forwards to. Now,
yeah.
Royal Court usually champions brand new writing. Usually things premiere here before you see them anywhere else, but Road is actually a revival.
Yeah, it was performed first of all here 30 years ago. It's written by Jim Cartwright, who also did, am I right in saying, The Rise and Fall of Little Voice?
Yes, which was adapted into a film starring Jane Horrocks and Ewan McGregor that was just called Little Voice, but you may have seen that. It was a good film.
Yeah, so interesting to see what this one's going to be like. It's directed by
John Tiffany.
Now I know that name.
Yeah, John Tiffany. We've seen The Glass Menagerie recently, which you can watch just up there. Is it up here?
It is just up there.
And he's also the current holder of the Olivier Award for Best Director of a Play for
Harry Potter and the Cursed Child.
He is in
massive piece of theatre which is going over to Broadway as well.
It is, and taking some of the original West End cast with them, so great for them.
So you know, at the moment John Tiffany is doing pretty well for himself.
He really is. Now Road tells the story of the inhabitants of an unnamed northern road and their day-to-day lives over the space of a day on the road in which they live. Also hopefully quite gritty, as it comes with an age guidance of 14 plus, so
do you know what? I'm a big fan of gritty stuff.
Yeah, and
gritty means meaty.
Yeah, it does, hopefully, so we might be in for a bit of a what's the word?
Bit of a
Something a bit edgy.
Edgy.
Yeah,
love a bit of edge.
Love the edge.
Theatre is all about edge.
Piece is 2.5 hours, but it has an interval, so we're gonna catch you then.
We've come to the interval of Road here at the Royal Court, which means it is time for the Breaker-Leggers 30-second interval breakdown. Go! What do you think so far?
Yeah, I'm really not making head nor tail of this, to be honest with you. Poor character development, they dip in, dip out. I guess I like the kind of short little formulaic bits of scene moving into others, but I'm really struggling. How about you?
Yeah, I'm finding it quite dull. The concept's nice, but I think they're almost being stuck by the set. It almost seems quite distant. There's a box in the middle. It's very static and in the middle. I'm not loving it so much. We have come to the end of Road at the Royal Court. So, how did you find that?
For me, there were problems from the off. The script is almost like the playwright has read a dictionary of northern language, eaten it, and then vomited it directly all over the page. I found most of the text convoluted and verbal diarrhea-ish. I really struggled with every sentence. I was bored. It lacked pace, and I just couldn't get enthusiastic about any of the characters or the lives of the people involved. How about you?
I thought it got better. The second act was much better. It's a collection of scenes, and I thought the scenes were better in the second act. They're a lot more dynamic. It's kind of following the journey of people, random people, living on a road. And as the evening has gone on, obviously getting more drunken, more sexual. So I think just in terms of content, there's a lot more engaging content. In terms of the language, I didn't really have... Some of the language was quite nice. I liked the poetic feel of it in that sense. But I wouldn't necessarily be rushing back. And there's nothing to do with the performances. I thought the performances were good. a very strong cast of, I think it was 9 of them. There's one character who's like the narrator, who I believe is a poet himself.
An MBE winning,
An MBE poet. And he handled the text extremely well, almost as I would expect a poet to handle it. So it was interesting to see this poetic text handled by a poet, and he delivered that extremely well. His name was Sissay, wasn't it? Sissay?
Yeah, Lemn Sissay.
Lemn Sissay handled the text extremely well.
For me, I take some of the points that Nathan has raised on there. For me, the poetry that was aimed for and hinted at felt like an excuse for shoddy craftsmanship in what it takes to make a play. With regards to the production, there was nothing gained from actually having this on stage. At times I felt like I could be listening to a radio version of this as a collection of poetry in individual scenes, and I would have got exactly the same experience from that than having any of the physical on stage attributes. John Tiffany has led a very, very static, a very, very shallow production for this piece, which maybe could have been brought better to life with a little bit of dynamicism. But there is a line in this where it says, "As somehow has escaped," and somehow he has let the point of this text totally escape the production.
That's a really good point, actually. Thinking of it as a radio piece, I could almost see that. The beauty is in the text, and they have tried to make it dynamic. There's some use of movement, some contemporary movement, but even then I was a bit disengaged with...
Too little, too late for me with regards to the contemporary movement.
Yeah, it didn't quite fit.
Yeah, as for you saying it got better in the second act, that was basically because it couldn't have got worse. We were having discussions at the interval saying, do you know what, if it wasn't raining, we probably wouldn't go back. So there had to be an improvement, and there was in the second act, but that's literally when you're building from the bottom up, can you get any worse? You know, you've hit rock bottom, there's nowhere to go but up.
Outside of that though, in terms of the scenes, I'd imagine if you're a drama school teacher or you are looking for pieces of monologues, pieces of workshop texts for groups of actors from 2 to 4 people, you know, this piece does have some really nice short segments if you want to work with people on text.
Which would work in isolation.
In isolation, but in terms of what you're saying, in terms of a show, actually putting together a show, it's more an experience than a play as such.
And not a good experience. You know, there are experiences, you know, being stabbed in the eyes is an experience, not a great experience.
I wouldn't say this was as bad being stabbed in the eye. Maybe it was for you, but for me, not by a long shot. It did touch on some really nice themes. In the first act, there was a section which was quite long and laborious, but it touched on a really nice theme of depression. And at points, some of the language used to express the inner feelings of someone going through depression were quite
beautiful.
Quite
was
nice.
well rounded, but it was few and far between. Those moments weren't consistent throughout the piece. You would get these touches of very light and very delicate language, well employed, and then at other times it just felt like gobbledygook. It just felt like utter trash talk.
The Royal Court is a fantastic space. If you don't know, it's quite a small auditorium, but the theatre itself, the actual stage, is so flexible and you can do so much. We've seen some incredible sets here.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how much I liked the set for this. I think it almost limited them. It was a glass box that came up from the floor. I don't want to give too much away, but it looked quite beautiful, mirrored, and then it could be lit from within to show actors inside it. But it almost restricted them quite early on. I almost felt quite disengaged from the performers.
Yeah, you've got a fairly expansive stage with a lot of technology at your fingertips, yet what John Tiffany has done in this production is limit that down to an 8 foot by 8 foot square box and kept most of the action in that box, which just doesn't help when the text itself for me is stuffy and sticky and just kind of I wanted it to reach out to me. I wanted to, if I'm dealing with a working class situation of the 1980s and the struggles that people went through at that time, when we're dealing with Thatcher's government and the closing of the mines and the turmoil, and then yet the escape of being drunk, and the fact that alcohol offers an escape to the everyday mundanity of the depression of the time. I wanted that to reach out to me, and it just never ever did, from the quality of the text or from the production values. At times it felt a little bit to me, and I picked up little bits of Willie Russell's Blood Brothers, in so much as the setting and the class of person and the street on which this was set. But for me, Blood Brothers is just much better. It has a narrative, and it makes you feel for the characters are developed. In this, the characters, you learn nothing about them. Their names don't matter. Their position in time and space does not matter. And I want a piece to matter. This didn't matter to me.
Yeah, and I think it's down to it being a stage piece. I think the language works really well, and good use of music. The music that they had, they really banged it out. I could feel the bass really kind of ringing through my chair and through my ears, which again is about the sound, and it's the experience of sound, and this seemed to be more a piece of experienced sound through music and through words.
Which would have worked great on the radio.
Which would have worked great on the radio.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, and the thing is as well, I'm not sure if it's just this production that's pulling it down, whether if it was devised in another way and presented in a different way, we'd maybe be seeing it and feeling it in a different way. I'm not sure.
Maybe for you, not for me, because the text, like I say, I found the script pretty diabolical.
However, we should say Everyman that they had at the National, which was
Carol Ann Duffy wrote that.
Yeah, again,
laureate.
Beautiful use of text and poetry, which I loved, but you weren't such a fan
But
of.
much better staged. I would watch that again.
Again, that's what I mean. So is it just in the way that it's staged? Because Everyman was very dynamically staged.
The difference is Jim Cartwright himself has written the plays. He's a playwright, whereas Carol Ann Duffy, for a piece of poetrical, is that a word? Poetrical?
It is now.
Theatre. Is a poet, so you know what you get from her. She's a master of poetry, whereas Jim Cartwright is a playwright who has played with poetry in this piece, and for me, it just didn't seem like he knows what he's doing.
I think he knew what he was doing, and there's some beautiful stuff, but I just don't think it quite translated in this production.
So, I bet you're wondering how many legs for Road, playing here at the Royal Court until September of this year.
For Road, we are going to give just 2 legs.
Yeah, it's not the worst thing we've seen. We've had to compare it to things that have literally made us want to claw our faces off.
And it's not quite there.
And it's not quite to that level.
Because the cast is great.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong.
Great, really strong
some
performances.
Really strong performances.
Especially from the females, I found.
Yes.
I found that the women... This year is such a vintage year for me, for strong female characters and well-written female parts in what we've seen. And this is another one that is adding to that. So, yeah, performance-wise...
Nothing wrong with the cast.
Great.
Very strong cast.
Yeah.
Some cast members I'd love to see in other pieces as well.
Not their fault.
If you'd asked me at the end of the first act, I probably would have said 1 leg.
Yeah. I'm also very surprised with John Tiffany. You know, the Glass Menagerie was lovely.
Yes.
He's the current Olivier holder for Best Play, Best Director of a Play for Harry Potter and the Cursed Child.
Yeah.
If you hadn't have told me this was John Tiffany, I'd have come away thinking it was a director that didn't really know what they're doing, to be quite frank with you. And I'm shocked at that, I really am.
But hey, that's what we thought.
What do you think?
Let us know.
Like,
subscribe,
send us a message,
leave your comments below,
follow us on Twitter. We're the Breaker Leggers, and we'll catch you again soon.
Bye.